Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi coming to you live from Jaipur. I just reached about 15, 20 minutes ago. I had promised, sir, that I want to do a show with sir with regards to what's happening in Ukraine and has Ukraine taken a backseat when it comes to the Israel war. One of the things that we must understand, there is a battle happening between the United States, within the United States. Kisko support kare? Who do we support? Is it Ukraine? Is it Israel? Or is it both? There is a huge problem and a huge discussion which is taking place. There was a vote in the Congress which very nearly missed. Ukraine was not acceptable. Biden said, "Without Ukraine, we won't do much." So there's a lot happening in that particular aspect. Let's welcome Major General Prabdeep Singh on a Friday rather than a Thursday. Sir, namaskar, good evening, and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Aadi. Good to be back today on a Friday. Thursday was busy elsewhere, and though I do realize that Ukraine on a Thursday always feels good. However, notwithstanding, as you mentioned, lots is happening. Ukraine kind of has gone into the back burner. It's been overshadowed by the happenings in Israel, and of course, last 2 3 days we've had some renewed and more activity being seen in the Taiwan Straits. So all that is something we need to talk about. Where is it all headed? Uh, is Ukraine going to be kind of forgotten? Is the United States going to continue pumping in money, arms, and ammunition, or put a stop to it? All this is something that we need to work upon and think about and see as to where it's going. Uh, what we've seen when we analyze Ukraine today, we've had the we've had General Zelensky himself admitting that this war in Ukraine has kind of reached a stalemate. Now, that is a statement coming from the general who's responsible for the war in Ukraine. Now, this is a very strong statement. Of course, it's been refuted by the Russians, who said that the offensive is continuing and there is no stalemate as such. So, when you look at all this, we do know that the war is going to continue. As of today, if you really analyze, Russia has not yet achieved its minimum war aims, or I would say the special mission operational aims. That's the minimum that they want, is having the entire of, you know, the four oblasts which are there. They need to be taken on. Odessa has to be captured. So all that is lying. And we see the offensive which is going towards Kharkiv, and Kharkiv must be reached. So why is it that the Russian, offensive has not yet taken off? That is something that we need to wonder. But in my opinion, we're waiting for the winters. Winters are going to set in, and winters, as we know, are quite harsh. But at the same time, this other school of thought is that the Russian army has always been fighting in the winters, and it has always won its wars. It is used to winters, and much more used to the Ukrainians, because Ukrainians are, much to the west as compared to the hardy soldiers of Russia, who come from all parts of Russia. So when it comes to fighting during winters, the Russians are better equipped. That's one we got to realize. And the Russians are likely to kind of exploit. At the same time, the Ukrainians feel that even today, whatever little progress that they are making is through the infantry, through the small teams operations. And they feel that they will be able to continue throughout the winters. So this is the kind of a situation that is existing today. Uh, Interestingly, the Ukrainians, in the down south in the Kherson region, have got a foothold on the southern part of the river. So that foothold is existing, and they are kind of enhancing that. This is something which intrigues me as to how come the Russians are not countering it with a physical kind of a attempt to dislodge them. Of course, they're launching a lot of missile attacks and air attacks and drone attacks onto those lodgements and the foothold that has been created in the Kherson region. And similarly, in the Zaporozhye region, there is some kind of progress that the Ukrainians have made. But when you look at the overall progress, which is quite disappointing, when you say disappointing, the last 4 5 months, they've been able to just come in deep by about 10 miles. Now, that's not what you do. Now, and this has got the Americans and the NATO forces kind of discouraged, disheartened, and at the same time amused, because the amount of money that has been pumped in, the amount of weaponry that has been pumped in, the progress is nowhere near commensurating, commensurate to what the effort the West has put in.
Yeah.
So, as far as the Russians are concerned, of course, they are kind of wanting to surround Avdiivka, and those kind of operations continue to be carried out. Up north, the operations towards Kharkiv, they are continuing. At the same time, the progress is slow. Now, I was talking to somebody, and he says, yeah, he was trying to tell me, he says, what's this? Russians have proven to be useless as far as warfare is concerned. And, the kind of progress they should have made, they haven't made. And he was trying to relate it, this friend of mine, again, a senior military officer, he was trying to relate it to what had happened in the initial stages last year, and where the Russians were routed. So he was saying that the Russians are, not well led, and they're not trained, and they're not kind of uh, doing what they actually could. So they've been a kind of a disappointment. Now, my counter to that is very simple, and I've been saying that over a period of time, and to everybody, is look, Russia is a huge country. Russia is a huge armed force, has a huge armed force component. They've, if they want, they can deploy the Russian army and in one stroke take over Ukraine if they really want it. But the fact of the matter is, they termed it as a special military operation. They did not term it. They still do not call it a war because they haven't gone all out. And we also got to see the ratio of perhaps the regular forces to all the irregular forces that have been joined. Let's talk Wagner, which was there earlier. Let's talk of conscripts who are there at the moment. These are all conscripts with very little training, and they've been just mobilized and they've been put into the battle with less training. Now, what does that show? Is it a kind of a strategy, or is it a kind of a failing on part of the Russian armed forces? In my opinion, and what I've been stating earlier, is that the main forces will continue to remain to be conserved by the Russians for a bigger battle whenever and if it takes place. They don't want to commit. So the main armed forces, the main equipment, the main weaponry is still being conserved, and I continue to maintain that. So, is this leading to a stalemate? Is the question. We did hear for the last 15, 20 days that a massive operation was being carried out. Regular troops have been deployed, and the Russians suffered a large amount of casualties. Yes, definitely, they deployed regular forces. They deployed a large offensive component and suffered a huge, comparatively a major loss. Now, this will happen in any offensive. It is plain and simple. The moment you launch an offensive on a well-prepared defenses, you're bound to lose lives, soldiers, you're bound to lose a lot of equipment. So that is what has happened, and that's all war is all about. So nothing to really kind of fret. The Russians today are conserving their armed forces, as I said, and will continue to do so. Uh, Notwithstanding all this, the question remains: how long will they keep prolonging this war? In my understanding, they're all looking at tiring not only the Ukrainians but also the NATO forces and also the Americans, which the fatigue is already being felt all over Europe. The after effects, or the effects, not the after effects, the effect of the war is being felt all over Europe, and that is what that fatigue has set in, and you have, you know, you see the statements being made by the Prime Minister of Hungary, and you know, Viktor Orban, he's gone about and saying, look, he made a very interesting statement to say that while you people are looking at war, we are looking at making peace.
Hmm.
You know, so he's talking about peace. He's perhaps taken the lead as far as talking peace is concerned, and he's been criticized for it. But the fact of the matter is, there are people wanting to talk peace as far as the Ukraine war. They want this war to end at the fastest.
Yeah.
The strain of uh, the refugees, the economic repercussions which have taken place because of the war, the losses which have occurred, the the financial crisis that the country is going through, and plus they have depleted all their stocks of ammunition. I mean, tomorrow for future wars, they really do not have, because their production capability, as we all know, is pretty limited. And they haven't been able to ratchet up
Hmm.
to an extent that it can continue fueling the Ukrainian war. So that is where Ukraine rests. Very little news comes out of it. Uh, USA is also withdrawing its support. I would say withdrawing its, when I say withdrawing its support, if you see the amount of money is being allocated, and the rift that you mentioned between the Congress and the White House uh, is very, very evident. What was allocated recently, that is yesterday, was 425 million.
Hmm.
That's about all, and that includes about 300 million worth of laser guided munitions, basically to bring down the drones. This was the 50th package which was given to Ukraine. Now, I want to ask a simple question: if you uh, support a country to such an extent, and the country fails to deliver, what do you do? What will you do? Will that phrase, as long as it takes, continue to hold on? I think there has to be and bound to be a rethink on this.
Hmm.
Then there is this political angle. The war must linger. The war must continue to linger at this particular pace till the US elections,
November. Hmm.
right? This must continue till the elections. It must continue. There must small skirmishes or small attacks or something must continue to happen till the elections. Because if today the West pressurizes Ukraine and comes up with a peace plan, the fact remains that the election outcome is definitely going to be, you know, different from what it should be, what is desired by the present government. And you already have all the contenders, making statements. Ramaswamy, that guy, making statements. Trump making statements. The first thing that they're going to do is put an end to all the money that is going in. and they're going to start looking inwards. So, when you look at the state of the United States politics, I think it's quite at the moment it's in dire straits, if I may just put it. Now, let's take our attention to Israel and what's happening in Israel. Uh, I really don't have words to express because again, there are two parts and two views. One is the view that the terrorist act which was committed by the Hamas onto the Israelis, the revenge is being kind of taken by the Israelis, and Israelis will fight till the last Hamas, if I may just put it this way. So if that is the aim, then this already about the number of casualties which has taken place is quite a bit. I mean, if I just take today's casualties, we've got 9,061 killed in the Gaza Strip, and out of which 3,760 are children. Now, this is something which is, you know, outrageous as far as the world is concerned, and the repercussion of all this we've seen from the streets of London to all over the Arab world. This condemnation
Yeah.
has been taking place. So, if you recollect, Adi, in the first time when we were talking Israel, I said uh, Israel is going to be finished. And when we were having an informal talk, and you said finished. Yes, today all it's when I'm not saying it's finished, but what I'm trying to put across is while they have taken, while they have suffered the at the hands of the Hamas, which was absolutely cruel. No doubt about it. I mean, and that deserves the biggest condemnation that has to take place must be done.
So
Then, but at the same time, the actions being there are people who are contesting this and saying, "Fine, Hamas did a wrong thing," but what led them to do it? What are the reasons behind them becoming so brutal in taking this actions like this? So I
yeah,
I
questions
really
that come from all paradigms. Actually, it's
yeah. So
yeah.
it's kind of you can imagine the kind of hatred that would have developed over a period of time against the Israelis that manifested in this kind of terrorist act. Now, again, in my opinion, what Israel is doing, if I were Israeli and if things like that had happened on my soil, I would definitely be holding this kind of a position which the Israelis are doing. Uh,
You'll do the same thing.
initially,
Exactly. Yes.
yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Initially, it was
Yeah.
restricted to the air attacks. Now it is, come into the ground invasion part of it, which and which will continue. We're talking about, of course, the Americans. Anthony Blinken today is in Israel, and apparently he was there to discuss a humanitarian pause. The Rafah crossing with Egypt has been kind of operation for the last 3 days, and about 300 and some odd trucks, 374 trucks of humanitarian aid has been able to come through that. Then there have been crossings of a large number of foreigners, especially Americans, who have gone across into Egypt. So the Rafah crossing, which was earlier shut because the Egyptians were not ready to operate it and let the Palestinians come across, has become operational. There are about, as I said, 374 trucks in to the 21st, and it is kind of coming in, which is not enough, but then still that is happening. Now, what will be the manifestation of this? How will this Israeli, uh, you know, campaign, if I may call it, pan out? As we've seen that they're coming in from the north and they're coming in from the eastern side. They've kind of surrounded Gaza City, and we've also seen a lot of these videos coming out of the tunnels where the Hamas is claimed. They say these tunnels are for us and not for the civilians. So basically, uh, how do you flush them out? Now that is the question. How tunnels? Apparently, you may find that these tunnels will be flooded sooner or later. And as far as you know,
Sir, give me a
using water.
second. The network seems to be bouncing up a little bit. Just give me a second, sir. Let's just kind of hold it up to just spool it a little bit. Guys, by the time, please like this video here. Most importantly, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Sirs, this thing will just spool up back again. It'll just take a minute. Sometimes it just kind of takes a little time. But one of the things that you've brought out, sir, and is that you've given very interesting reasonings that a lot of people are kind of talking about why the Israel war should not go forward. So there's obviously a lot of condemnation and there's a lot of support as well from both the corners of the society. So it's very interesting. Guys, is the audio better? I've kind of switched off my video just for this thing. Is the audio better now?
The audio was fine.
All right, fantastic, sir. We continue, please?
Yeah. So we were talking about how it's going to pan out, and maybe flushing out of these tunnels by flooding is one of the options that is being talked about. And the Israelis are supposed to be pretty good at harnessing and making use of water. So that is something which is kind of their forte, and that's something that they excel in, and that's going to happen in this current war. Ground campaign that has been launched by the Israelis. The Israelis have lost just about 23 soldiers as of now, and it will continue. We have to also consider what's happening on the other fronts. You got to see as to what Hezbollah is up to. We know that Hezbollah has been launching a large number of attacks, and we've got to see as to what the Houthis in Yemen are up to. So there is a fear amongst the entire Middle Eastern countries that this
Hmm.
could flare up, and
Correct, sir.
kind of, if this flares up into a regional conflict, there are bound to be uh, repercussions. There's bound to be a turmoil in the Middle East, and this is something that all these countries, especially UAE, Saudi Arabia, and all, who were kind of tilting. I wouldn't saying tilting. We're looking at partnering with Israel for economic reasons, not for military reasons, but for economic reasons, for prosperity and for prospering further. So that alignment had started, as we are aware, and today they are conscious of the fact that if this war continues, there's bound to be an effect and it may kind of spill over and become a regional conflict. Now, the regional conflict part of it is because of this axis of resistance, which has been talked about, which consists of the Hamas, the Hezbollah, the Houthis, and the Shia Muslim Iraqi militias. Now,
Hmm.
when you look at all this taking place, axis of resistance, which apparently is all, uh, are proxies of Iran. and Iran is the one which is supposed to be supporting all these proxies. Now, would the Americans want to tame the Iranians? Is the question. So we're looking at Israel war. We want the war to be contained. We do not want further casualties, but at the same time, we want to root out, all the Hamas and the root cause of it. And the root cause, apparently, in the eyes of the world, it is the Iranians which are behind the axis of resistance, who are their proxies. So do
Correct.
you act on the so do you act on the Iranians? And if you want to act on the Iranians, what are the actions that you want to take against the Iranians? Now that's how it builds up. Would you want to go to war with Iran? Would you dare to do what you did in Iraq or in Afghanistan? Would you dare to do that in Iran? Uh, I'm afraid, my friends, that's not going to happen. While Iran has been a target all throughout, and I myself have always said that Iran is the next on the radar. But would that happen is the question. While all the
Mm.
that is what we got to see. Iran today is playing smart. I mean, if the Americans used Ukraine as a proxy to fight the Russians, the Iranians have used these militias, supported the militias to fight Israel. And when you talk Israel, you also talk America at the same time.
Mm.
Question is, uh, will it spread to Iran? Because if it spreads to Iran, it becomes a regional conflict, and a regional conflict is not good for the Middle East, and the Middle East realizes that.
Correct.
So there is a pressure on the West not to escalate, not to fight the Iranians, and Iran also has made a few statements say that they have no intent on fighting and going to war with anybody else. So this is a kind of a situation that we are in. We will have to see further as to how the escalation may take place. Will it take place? I really cannot say. But and one odd, if I may colloquially just say, stupid action uh, could trigger something, and that could be catastrophic for the entire Middle East, and cause a lot of casualties, lot of I mean, the region gets embroiled, and we'll end up in
Mm. Mm.
a bigger soup.
Mm.
Now, is it in the interest of China to let Iran get into this kind of a muddle? Is it in the interest of Russia to kind of, along with China, support Iran? So, the moment you will see the Americans getting involved in Israel, boots on ground, I'm talking about. Of course, they're talking of boots on ground in terms of advisors. That's a very interesting term which
Very.
the West uses, whether the United Kingdom or whether it is the US. They put special force advisors onto a soil, and they say they're not there to fight, but they're there to advise. Uh, I don't know whether that actually means involvement or not. In my opinion, it means direct involvement. And if this kind of a thing happens, and if similar advisors are placed by the Russians in Iran, or Iran is guided, or the Chinese are there to support, which they will in case of a war. So we are in for bigger trouble. We are in for a World War III in any case. We've been contemplating that. And then, of course, you have Korea, North Korea. South Koreans made a statement today saying that a large amount, about 1 million rounds of 155 ammunition has been shipped by the Koreans to Russia. Similarly, a large amount of ammunition of 122 mm ammunition RT rounds that has also been shipped by Korea, North Korea to Russia. And this is post the visit of our friend, the president of North Korea, who when he visited Moscow and the areas around. So that kind of a thing is happening. So you see, everything is getting connected. So Ukraine is US, Europe involvement, Russia, of course. Russia is connected to China. Now you have the Israelis, conflagration that's getting linked to the Middle East countries. Is leading to Israel. Is leading to Iran. Iran is, you know, kind of ganged up. As I said, the Red Quad. You have Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. So everything today is leading, is hanging in a kind of a balance, is being maintained. But the moment the balance gets tilted because of, again, a stupid action on anybody's part, we are in for a bigger war, which is not in the interest of the entire world.
Absolutely.
That's my reading of the whole thing. And then you have, China setting up another station in Antarctica, the Russians carrying out their uh, maneuvers in the Arctic. Then you have the American and a British ship passing through the Taiwan Straits, uh, and you have the freedom of navigation operations just been concluded. Plus, you have, God knows, in October, I think there were around 400 plus Chinese sorties which crossed the median line towards Taiwan. Then you have a carrier
Yeah,
group which is south of Taiwan, which is placed. So when you link up all this, a lot is happening. Uh, if not handled, this precarious situation not handled diplomatically and in a mature manner, could lead into bigger trouble. Yeah, that's my take.
insane situations. Let's do one thing, sir. I'll pick up the questions. I have a few in the middle, so I'll keep throwing in my mirchi masala. Let's pick up the questions from
Right.
the audience as well. Guys, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Sorry about the network. I'm also out of station, so probably there's an issue there. But the show must go on. That's the beauty of the situation. And I thank sir for actually just adjusting to my timeline. Firstly, so please like the video, subscribe to the channel. You can contribute towards the DevTalks efforts with the QR code up there, or you can use PayPal, which is in the link below, or send us super stickers or super chats. Let's get into your questions. Maitri says the first one. I feel Ukraine will be divided amongst Russia and Poland.
Yeah, Maitri, I do agree with you, and we've been talking about it. I've been talking earlier about the trifurcation of Poland, correction, Ukraine. Trifurcation of Ukraine, meaning part of it with Russia, the one which is captured, Poland coming up onto the western side, and north and the northwest, and Ukraine being limited to a very limited area. So, in the end of it all, if the war continues this way, yes, that's going to be the situation.
Hmm, that is interesting. Sir Rangaswamy says, Sir, NATO expansion has been put on hold till 2028. Do you agree? And any comments on that?
I'm so sorry. I really haven't got this year in my radar, but definitely, as we look at it, it is nobody's talking about NATO. Have you heard any statement from NATO of late? The only thing
Nope.
that I've been, when we started, when this war started, and I said NATO is going to become defunct. Uh, so what it apparently is coming to us that NATO has become defunct. It's fangless. It's been defanged for a simple reason that they've been ineffective. And they themselves and the NATO countries today are turning against uh, all this. Turkey is on a different, route. Is taking a different route, and so is, as I mentioned, Hungary, and then you had these elections in Latvia and all that. So you find that the NATO nations today are again started looking inwards, and they're saying nation first, NATO second. So initially, they were all gung ho about supporting the Ukrainians. Today, friend Zelensky is kind of near depression because he's rather morose. Nobody is even looking at him.
Yep.
And this statement by Zaluzny to say that it's hit a stalemate is kind of it was meant to actually trigger off and you know awaken the Americans into giving them more equipment. And the only thing that they keep asking is air, and they keep asking air defense, and they think ammunition. Come on, uh, haven't you got enough? The kind of money that has been poured into Ukraine, by now they would have had a absolutely brand new world class armed forces. God knows where the money
Yep.
is gone. And unfortunate, a country has been destroyed by somebody's personal ego.
Batraji says in the present time, no army has completed his mission like us. Now, Russia also is showing a similar pattern. Is this a pattern that we're seeing where results are not forthcoming because of military operations?
No, you see, military operations are always backed by a political will. Military operations are not carried out in isolation by the generals, at their whims and fancies. These are based on strategic, uh, keeping the strategic dimension in view, and it's always a political decision. The day a country takes its decision to go all out, if say Russia decides to go all out, well, it won't take them much time to do it. But in turn, what will happen is maybe they would have fallen into the American trap, and that is what they don't want to get into. The second thing at the same time is it's a political decision on the part of the Israelis to kind of, uh, wipe out Hamas from the Gaza Strip. And of course, a huge amount of price is being paid by the Palestinians in Gaza due to all the collateral that is happening. So it's always a political will, and it's a strategic. First comes the strategic interest of a nation. Second is the political will to pursue that strategic uh, direction. And third, it gets executed by the armed forces, which is supported by the finances and the wherewithal from the government and the common public. It's a national effort. War is a national effort. And in this, we see in Ukraine, we don't see a national effort on the part of the Russians. We see a
Hmm.
a
Well,
national effort on the part of the Ukrainians.
hmm.
In Israel, we see that it's a national effort. Each person, each child is involved. So that's how political will and national effort is on.
So,
Ukraine war, unfortunately, is fueled not by a national effort, but by an international desire to counter Russia. So it's kind of see how it works.
it's opposite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
JP, thank you so much. He says, जनरल सर समाधान क्या है सारी समस्या का संसार में बताओ. Please tell us what is the solution for this entire thing.
I definitely have no solution. The only solution is uh, dissolution of borders, eradication of entire arms industry. I mean, why can't we live as human beings all over the world? I mean, Why have borders? Why are we talking territory? And why are we not free to do what we want to? Well, I think we have to go beyond borders. We have to go beyond religion, because as we see, most of these wars are fueled uh, because of religion differences. I mean, all religions actually promote peace and harmony. So, in my opinion, these are very, very personal interests of individuals which come in the way and lead to wars, whether political interests or whether economic, financial interests on the part of the military industrial complexes. And that is all. It's the greed which is leading to wars. Otherwise, all humans are the same. And I think United Nations, a defunct organization, must get revived, must get reshaped to the present circumstances, and come up with better solutions. Otherwise, no, nothing seems to be in sight. No end seems to be in sight.
Adisura says, sir, is pushing on Ukraine a good move? Having the West split between Israel and Ukraine is a good thing for China, Russia, and Iran. I think you've covered this a little bit. Any
Yeah,
other
I
thoughts?
covered that. Absolutely. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a damn good move on the part of. It's good for Russia. It's good for China. It's good for Iran, and the Ukrainian war will just continue the way it is, as I described earlier.
So, SN says, more than Ukraine, Israel, or Hamas, UN seems to be the biggest casualty of the recent conflicts. I would say all multilateral sort of organizations that are existing right now.
UN is not the biggest casualty. I mean, UN has become, unfortunately, they are the ones, and I made the statement last time. Look, you have the P5, and you have the permanent members, and you have the 10 members who come in to the General Assembly and Security Council in rotation. Now, the P5 is supposed to be the one which is supposed to ensure that there are no wars.
Correct.
The United Nations, I mean, the very essence of United Nations Charter uh, is not being upheld at all. If the P5 themselves are going to be fighting with each other, then there's no question, there's no reason. Then you have a Security Council, and then you have all these people trying to promote God knows what. They're promoting wars rather than peace. So it is not the United Nations which has become a casualty. The United Nations has, uh, upon itself, inflicted this casualty. It's a self-inflicted casualty.
Correct. Divakar says, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. So, yesterday, midnight around 1:30 a.m., drone attack was here. I am from Ukraine. Divakar, my sincere request to you, please stay safe and stay out of the war zone. Just wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, yes, yesterday was one. Yeah, yesterday was one of the biggest drone attacks which were carried out in Ukraine after a long time. There were 40 drones, Shahid drones, which were launched. Out of that, I'm told 24 were down by the Ukrainians, but still the others got through. And they were on Kharkiv, they were on Odessa, Kherson, and Lviv. And so it was the Russians, not, and it was specifically targeting infrastructure. Throughout the winters, all these attacks will be on infrastructure. All these attacks will be on ensuring that the electrical supplies, doesn't fetch up. It'll be ensured that the no heating mechanism is in place. So all this is going to happen, and Ukraine better brace up for it. And I think uh, they understand this, and they're kind of prepared for this. But that's going to happen.
So, Shritik says, Kremlin today said such a group does not exist when asked about Wagner providing air defense to Hezbollah. Why deny? Russia wants to denazify Ukraine. Why is it then against victim Israel now? It's a confusing world order, sir.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, okay. when we're looking at Wagner, and there's been a lot of debate of late in Russia as far as the Wagner is concerned, and there is something called Ros Guardia or something, which is the uh, I would say a territorial kind of an armed force which exists in within Russia. So the debate which is taking place is, where do the Wagners go, or where do the Wagners ultimately go? So Wagner has been given was given the choice, either join the armed forces, Russian armed forces, or this Rospogardia. I mean that
Roswell,
noun is just slipping.
yes.
Rosvograd, and join that or go home. So these are the three choices being given. So Wagner, as such, today, while we say doesn't exist, it exists. It very much exists. And in another news, there was Prigozhin's son is apparently taken over the Wagner group. So,
Yeah.
so this thing continues, and Wagner is, as we all know, is quite active in Africa. So Wagner's not gone. So Wagner's not out of it. However, the soldiers were given a choice as to where, if you want to be on the Russian soil, there's no Wagner on Russian soil. Either you are with that Rosvograd, or you are with the the Russian armed forces, or you go home. So that's the choice they'll be given. So that is that. And when it comes to double standards on the Israeli
So
side, yeah, when it comes to the Israeli
nice.
side, as to, sorry,
Please go ahead, sir. Double
yeah,
standards when it comes to the Israeli.
yeah, as far as Russia commenting on Israelis is concerned, you know, Russia again wants. Why is it taking the Palestinian side? For a simple reason. For a simple reason that Israel is supported by the United States, and
And
if
Israel
Israel is
supported
supported by,
Ukraine.
and Israel supported Ukraine, so it is. These are the dynamics. These are the geopolitical dynamics which exist in the world, and everybody, most of us, in most of the countries, and no, there is. I don't think there is any country which is not talking about the two-nation theory, two states theory. Ultimately, that has to manifest on ground, and I'm sure that the Israelis also, after all, when they withdrew from the Gaza Strip in 2005, they had this notion in mind that, okay, you guys govern yourselves, and we are out of it. And they
Yeah.
kind of accepted this two-nation theory. Now, when that thing has been accepted, even today, I'm sure that the Israelis want the Palestinians to live peacefully. But definitely, they do not want any Hamas to be around to keep troubling them over a period of time. But the whole unfortunate part of it is, you may put down Hamas today, but you have created number of the children who are seeing this brutality which is being thing.
Difficult to kill an
It's
ideology, sir. Difficult to kill an
Yeah, you can't
ideology.
ideology. So now terrorism is now manifesting into an ideology, and that ideology cannot be killed so fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And these actions will continue. And that is what is coming under criticism as far as Israel is concerned. Israel has proven uh, that it is not so invincible as it was claiming it to be. All the fencing and Iron Dome, etc. So that invincibility part of it has been broken. That myth has been broken. So Israel today is in a kind of a fix. Yeah.
Sonal asks, isn't Iran a monster of the US is making, sir? Interesting question, Sonalji.
Interesting question, and I think one needs to go deeper into this. Um, you know, it's something that when it comes to a national interest, Sometimes the United States would be in favor of the creating in the Iranian monster, and sometimes it would go against it as it suits. So I really, I mean, in my opinion, Iran on its own, because of the Shia Sunni kind of divide that takes has is deep rooted. Iran has taken the lead, and Ayatollah Khomeini, when he kind of changed the entire ideology in Iran, and religious Sunni religious dominated society was kind of brought about. Uh, was it the United States behind it? I don't think so. I really do not.
And the last question for the evening we will take is Akash sir. He says, if Israel were to continue with the present action timeline of conflagration along the Middle East and consequences, your views?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, in my opinion, we will have a pause. Israel will be forced on to giving a humanitarian pause. The moment the momentum is broken, you talk in terms of a humanitarian pause, but then when you give a pause to an armed force, a military, the momentum gets broken. And when the momentum gets broken, uh, since you're from the military, you would understand that the Josh part of it doesn't exist anymore. And
True.
the effort of the United States and the West would be, and of course of the Middle East would be, to have more a prolonged humanitarian pause, thereby reducing the momentum to such a degree that the Israelis kind of accept and start adjusting to the current situation and accepting what happened in the past as one off event. So the effort of the world today would be to contain it, to not to cause further casualties, and not to let this spread into towards the Middle East. That's one. Second, if the Israelis refuse to kind of adhere to this humanitarian pause and say, okay, we will have a pause, uh, we are not killing Palestinians, we are only targeting Hamas, and we are targeting Hamas whether in Gaza or whether in the West Bank. We want to eradicate this, and they're hell bent on doing it. Uh, I can't give a timeline to that, but definitely, if the United States puts soldiers on ground, if Iran, which it is already talking about putting a brigade worth or some forces worth on Lebanese soil, if all that happens, then the day is not far that the Middle East get embroiled. And we'll have to wait and watch what's the outcome of today's Antony Blinken's visit, uh, and see whether this pause is accepted or not. And then maybe in the next week we can discuss this further. Yeah.
Let's do that, sir, because I think there's one big question that a lot of people are asking is that isn't the US actually the root cause of this entire issues which are happening all over the place? So we could actually take that up as a next discussion. So, firstly, once again, thank you so much for adjusting to this little timeline change that I had because of the travel that I'm currently doing. Normally, my travel I can kind of schedule, but today been a little odd. So, thank you so much for doing that, sir. Your views are always wonderful. And guys, thank you so much, all of you, for joining me at such a short notice. I just literally put out the link 5 minutes back. We've had more than 1,000 people joining in with us, sir. So thank you so much. It's always a pleasure learning from you, sir, and looking forward for our next week show on Thursday this time. Till then, sir,
Yeah.
Jai Hind.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, viewers. Thank you for being around, and thank you for the lovely questions. Have a great week ahead.
Thank you, sir.